Lee's Ferry Overlook is the local name for the sandstone cliff from where this photo is taken. The point at the south end of the overlook is about 160 feet above the surface of the Colorado River. A short hike up the hill from Lee's Ferry boat launch area brings you to the top of the overlook in just about 10 minutes. The orange and yellow hues at the top of the high cliffs are the last light of the day as the sun sets. Below the cliffs, the shadows of the evening set in and quiet begins to settle around the nearby campgrounds. From the overlook, you can see several points of interest. In this view, looking on the north shore upstream, you can make out part of an old boiler used by Charles Spencer in his failed attempt to mine gold from the shale layers in the area. Near the boiler are the remains of buildings used by John Lee for his ferry operations at this accessible, shallow, and wide area of the river. Rotate to the right of the photo and look across the river. Unseen behind the low cliffs next to the river is a shallow draw in which the south road from Lee's Ferry departed towards the south. From low in the draw, the road then worked its way up onto the ridge you see overlooking the river. This particular ridge is named Lee's Backbone. The name is in reference to the bone-jarring ride endured as the steel rims of the wagon wheels bounced across the bare sandstone rocks. Back down at water level, and just to the right of Lee's Backbone, there is a little bit of white water showing on the surface of the Colorado River. That is Paria Riffle, sometimes called a rapid. The waves are really not big enough to be considered a real rapid of the Colorado River. The riffle is formed by the outwash of rocks from the Paria River. Moving more to the right, you will see the familiar Vermilion Cliffs that are so prominently displayed from many locations in the area. Just below the far right end of the Vermilion Cliffs, you can just make out, in the dim light, a shimmering of water showing the surface of the Paria River not far from where it empties into the Colorado River. River riders spend the night on the riverbank in a campground reserved just for them. They arise the next morning for their river safety orientation. After orientation, they launch their watercraft and start their journey down the Colorado River.
Before we head on down the river, though, let's pause a bit to appreciate the geology right here and talk about what is to come as we drift down into the canyon. There's an immense sequence of sedimentary rocks called the Grand Staircase that extends through 3 national parks, from the Grand Canyon in the south and through Zion and Bryce Canyon National Parks up to the north in Utah. The lowest and oldest rocks in the Grand Staircase are at the bottom of the Grand Canyon, and the youngest and highest are at the rim of Bryce Canyon. Right here within the sequence, we are above all the rock formations in the Grand Canyon, even above the Kaibab limestone found at over 8,000 feet on the north rim, even though our elevation here is much lower, just over 3,000 feet. Notice the big bulge in the chart of the Grand Staircase. The bulge is the Kaibab Plateau, and it drags the Grand Canyon rock formations up with it. The Colorado River cuts right through the Kaibab Plateau, and as we move downstream, first through Marble Canyon and then into the Grand Canyon proper, we will watch the Grand Canyon formations rise up, one by one, above us. Right here we are standing on top of a hard caprock formation known as the Shinnerump Conglomerate. The Shinnerump also forms the top of Lee's Backbone, which, across the river, we see slanting up to the right. The Moenkopi Formation is also rising up below it, the last formation between us and the first Grand Canyon Formation, the Kaibab Limestone, which will first appear at river level just 1 mile downstream. Here, in the Shinneramp, we are still only about a third of the way up within the sequence of the Grand Staircase. The very next formation up in the sequence, the nearby grayish and purplish rocks, are the petrified forest member of the Chinle Formation. It is indeed the same rock formation containing all the petrified wood in Petrified Forest National Park over 100 miles away. Several more steps up the Grand Staircase lead us up to the Navajo Sandstone, which is catching the last light on the top of the cliffs to the east, and also is the cap rock on top of the Vermilion Cliffs off to the west. To get back to the boat launch, just out of our view, you walk back down the Shinneramp ramp and then around to the Panorama spot at the beach, where we can watch a rafting party preparing to launch. Heading downstream, we will float 10 miles down to a panorama spot at Soap Creek, where we will see in the cliffs the first 4 steps we have taken down the Grand Staircase and into the Grand Canyon.